I wanted to jump on here and send you guys just a quick update about how things are going for us in North Carolina. Are currently in Charlotte. Um, we relocated down here 3 days after the storm hit because we were running low on food and water. And we were out of running water, we were out of electricity, out of cell service, didn't have any of those things for 3 days. And so we were like, I think it's time to go. And so the hardest part about being away from Asheville, we're now in Charlotte, is just being away from friends, not being there to physically help is really difficult. And we feel like there's only so much you can do from being afar away. But something that's really, I think, been hitting me is that I'm just aware of how important it is to share people's stories and for people to hear the testimonies of what is coming out of this devastating hurricane. And I just think it's so important for us to hold space for these powerful stories of survivors. And there's one survivor that I would really like for you guys to hear her account, her story tonight. I am just sitting down with her for the first time after hearing about her story from my dear friend Laura Marie. So we are going to have her jump on here. So tell me what happened the night of the storm. If you can just take me back and tell me what happened the night of the storm.
I honestly didn't even know that there was a hurricane. Like I don't stay like too in tune with the news or anything like that. Like we just knew there was a lot of rain and like no one was talking about, oh, hey, this is going to get really bad or, anything like that. So it was just, to me, it was just, we're having a lot of rain right now. And I didn't really think anything of it.
And how old are your kids?
Um, so I have a son who's 9. He actually turned 9 the night before all of the flooding. So we had just celebrated his birthday the night before and had our little birthday cake, and he opened some new presents, and then I have a daughter who's 5.
Yeah. So when did you know things were not right? Like what, like when did you realize things are not right? Like this isn't good.
All right. Yeah, so Friday, it was that Friday morning, September 27th. I looked out my bedroom window as we were talking, and I saw that the neighbor's yard, like my next door neighbor, her yard was starting to like flood a bit. Like I actually saw a bag of her trash like floating down her yard. And I was like,
Mm.
the neighbor's trash is floating down her yard, but I
Mhm.
still didn't think it was going to get as bad as it did. I mean, the road that we're on, it kind of slopes downhill, and anytime we have heavy rain,
Mhm.
the road that we live on does turn into a little bit of a river itself, but then it's like as soon as the rain stops, the water goes down and it's never a huge deal. So I kind of just thought it was another situation like that. And then I walked into my living room and I saw that my next door neighbor had left her house, and the neighbor across from me, she kind of just like ended up sitting down in his yard, and she was really distraught and she was just sitting there, and I'm just
Mm.
like still kind of trying to wake up and like I'm trying
Right.
to figure out what's going on.
Mhm.
So then I saw this car that was like on the street
Mhm.
next to our little road there. They stopped and they got out and they helped her up and they put her in the car and they drove off. um,
Mhm.
and I could see that there was like some water building up in my yard.
Mhm.
Um, and for some reason, like in that moment, I was like, I need to move my truck. Um, so I get in my truck, like I let the kids already woke up by this point. So I'm like, I'm getting in the truck, I'm moving it to the car wash across the street because it was higher elevation.
Mhm.
Like it's kind of up on a hill. And then
Right.
our neighborhood kind of like slopes down the hill a
Mhm.
little bit.
Mhm.
Um, so I just decided to like put my hiking boots on and like a windbreaker jacket, and I walked right out onto the porch. And as soon as we have like a ramp
Mhm.
that goes up to the porch. We don't have like stairs. We have this ramp,
Right.
and everything looked fairly normal to me. So I'm walking down the ramp, and as soon as I step off the ramp into my yard, I sunk down. I didn't realize that my ramp had started floating. So I thought it was still ground level. So at this point, like, I had no idea the flooding was already as bad as it
Wow.
was. So when I stepped off my ramp into my yard, the water, like, I sunk straight down into the water, and it came up almost to my hip. Like, it was all the way
Oh my
to the top of
gosh.
my thigh. So I
Oh,
just tromped through the water and got in my truck, soaking wet, and moved my truck up to the car wash, and
oh my
walked
goodness.
back through the water so I could go back in the house to my kids. And at that point, I still didn't know that it was going to get even worse. I had no idea my house was going to flood or anything like
Mm.
that. So, but I had a feeling things maybe could get bad. So my first thought was walk in the house, get my duffel bag. I come from a family of preppers, so I have this duffel bag that has like a life straw in it and water purification tablets and like some clothes and emergency food and medicine and stuff
Mm.
like that. And I picked that bag up off my bedroom floor, walked into my living room, put it on the couch, and then I just kind of let my kids know, like, I think we might have to leave the house. I don't know for sure yet. I'm just kind of watching and waiting.
Mhm.
But I want you guys to be ready to go just in case. And I threw a couple extra changes of clothes into the bag and zipped it up and took it out to my truck. So I walked back through the water, put it in my truck, and by the time I got back in my house, I was walking to my back bedroom to make sure that there wasn't anything else that I needed to grab just in case.
Mhm.
But just in case happened, it arrived, because as soon as I got to my back bedroom, I was stepping in puddles of water. The water was already entering the house at that
Mm.
point. And I just said, screw everything in the bedroom. I turned around, looked at my kids. It was like, put your shoes on. We have to go right
Mm.
now.
Mm.
And I knew the
Mm.
water in the yard was already really deep. So I knew I was going to have to try to carry my kids through the water. And
Mm.
once they got their shoes and their jackets on, I picked up my daughter and I told my son, just stand on the porch and wait for me. I will come back for you. My daughter on my hip. And by the time I started walking through the water in the yard, it was already like I was like fighting a current. Like there was a river running through my yard, and it was definitely up to my hip by then. So I was just kind of fighting the current with my daughter on my hip. I carried her up the hill, put her in the truck, went back for my son, and he's a big boy. I mean, he's 9, but he's already like probably comes to about here on me. He weighs about 80
How,
pounds,
how
and
much do you weigh, if
I'm
I can
100
ask?
pounds. I'm 100 pounds, and I'm 5 foot tall. And I was just like, Lord, give me the strength to carry this boy, because
Mm.
I've tried to put him on my back in the past. Like a couple of years ago, I tried to put him on my back to carry him to the doctor when he had the flu really bad, and
Mhm.
he like move. He was so lethargic, and I put him on my back to carry him to the car, take him to the doctor, and I fell. So I was
Mhm.
like, I've got to carry this kid through this water, and there's this current pushing against me, and I didn't know how I was going to do it. I guess my adrenaline was just really like an overdrive, because
Mhm.
I bent down to let him get on my back, and I just popped him right up there like he didn't weigh anything, and walked him through the water. And that was my last little tromp through the river that was running through my yard. And we sat in my truck for about 4.5 hours waiting for the rain to stop and the water to recede. And in that time, there was just people walking around, and there was some rescue team had come out and set up right where I was sitting, and they were getting their rafts out and they were going down the road in the rafts. I mean, I could tell already the whole town was flooded. Like, it wasn't just us. Nobody told us to evacuate. We never were
Right.
told to evacuate, none of us.
So, what did you do after sitting in the truck, sitting in your truck for 4 hours, watching the waters rise? What did you do next?
And I did get out of my truck, and I just kind of walked down the hill a little bit to see if I could see if it looked safe for me to try to go back in the house. And And I could see that it was. So it flooded a good bit in the house. My refrigerator got knocked over from the water. Furniture had like moved around. I had a dining room chair in the living room. There was like clothes all over the floor. I mean, it was just a mess in there. So I knew like we weren't going to be able to stay in the house. Like I knew my house was ruined at that point. But that day, like there was just a lot of people walking around like aimlessly. Like I knew a lot of people were in the same situation as us, just trying to get out of their house as fast as they could. A lot of people's cars were just kind of taken in the flood, so couldn't get in their car and go anywhere. So they were just walking, and everyone just looked really confused, like really scared. And I went back for more food. I had like half a loaf of bread that was in the cabinet. Um, there was like half a case of water sitting on the ground that ended up covered in mud and nasty flood water. But I had a feeling that that was going to be our lifeline, like the little bit of water that we had left. We didn't have power, we didn't have running water in the house. I checked, tried to turn on the faucet. There was no running water. So I immediately just like went into survival mode and thought like I got to make sure that we are going to have food and water. I just kind of remember sitting there thinking like, what's going to happen after this? What are we going to do next? I had no idea what what to even try to like prepare for.
Mm-hmm. Were you able to drive anywhere? Were you able to go anywhere?
No, there was still so much. Well, there was like a lot of damage to the whole town. I mean, um, so I got in my truck. I didn't have much gas left in my truck, but I got in there, decided we should go try to find food and water while we can, because we don't know how long we're going to be in this situation. And I'm like driving down the road, and there's a line of cars ahead of me, and there's a line of cars behind me, and all you see is destruction all around. There's buildings that have collapsed, there's cars that are like crushed in, power lines down, the poles that hold the power lines have like fallen down everywhere, there's trees down everywhere. The destruction is unreal. Like it looks like a war zone out
Right.
there. My kids and I had slept in the truck the night before, and that was the night that I was hearing, like I couldn't go to sleep till like 4 o'clock in the morning because I we kept hearing gunshots and we heard screaming and we heard sirens, and it was just like constant. It was really
Oh my
terrifying.
gosh.
It's pitch black out there because there's no power, so there's no street lights
Oh
or
my
anything.
goodness.
Um,
And you were just hearing, it was just like mayhem, like because people were just freaking out. I'm assuming, like, what kinds of things did you hear aside? You said you heard gunshots. What else did you hear?
yeah, yeah, just gunshots, people screaming,
Mm.
and just the sirens. Like so many sirens. Like I feel like I can't get that sound out of my head. Um,
Mm.
like even now,
Wow.
like now they're here in Dandridge and we're safe. Like even now, when I hear a siren or I even see like police lights flashing or anything like that, like all I can see is those images of like all of those ambulance and fire trucks and police cars just like flying right past me, flying down my road. Like that's all we heard, and we knew that they were like pulling bodies out and
Mm.
all sorts of things. So say I don't know like where the gunshots were coming from, like if they were shooting at somebody or trying to shoot, store windows open to like loot or
Right.
what, because everybody was like searching for food and water. Everybody. They're like, yeah, we were all really desperate.
What got you through that night in the car? Like, what did you hang on to? Like, what did you
Um,
do?
Honestly, I had a bottle of Hennessy in one hand and a cigarette in the other. And I did manage to get that out when I was like going back in for things. Um, and I had a pocket knife, and I just thought, somebody approaches me and they try to hurt me or my kids, then I guess I'll have to do what I have to do. And
Mm-hmm.
I prayed. Like I prayed so many times, and my son asking to pray with me. Like I can't tell you how many times my son asked me to pray with him, and he was like,
Mm-hmm.
at one point he was like, I just can't stop feeling like it's my fault, and I can't stop asking God why. And I'm like, all I can say is like, it's not your fault. Like, I don't even know how you could think that it is. Like, how
Oh.
you could blame yourself. But as
Mm.
far as why God lets things like this happen, like, I don't really have the perfect answer to, but I know that this world hasn't been perfect for a long, long time. Like,
Right.
and it's just never gonna be. And sometimes we have to go through hard things.
Mm. So once you got through that night, you said when you woke up the next day and you looked at like, hey, we have 3 pieces of bread, 2 bottles of water. Is that where it ended up hooking up with your community group and reaching out to people that were going to come and help you? And tell me about that.
Yeah, I just let them know like the situation we were in, and we were desperate for food and water, and we were trapped where we were, and our house got flooded, and we didn't know what we were going to do next. And Laura was on it. She messaged me and was like, come to my house. And I was like, I don't have gas to come to your house. Thank you. She was like, oh, well, I'll come get you. And that was like the biggest glimmer of hope for me, because I was so scared. I really cried that morning thinking that my kids and I were going to die together. I really thought we were going to, because we couldn't find food or water. And they're saying that the death toll like on the news is like inaccurate, that there's a lot more people that are dead and there's a lot more people that are missing.
Right.
Latest that I've heard, I haven't been back home since we left on Sunday, but the latest that I've heard is that the entire Swannanoa Valley just reeks of death right now.
How are you handling just knowing you're going to have to go back?
A bottle of Hennessy in one hand and a cigarette in the other, I guess. Like, I'm not okay. But I feel like I don't have a choice. Like, I have to. I feel like there's so much that like I want to grieve, and I can't. Like, I feel like it's just I don't have time. It's just not the time for grief, and I feel like that's okay. Like, I keep thinking about. I know there's somewhere in scripture that says like that there's a time to weep and there's like a time for joy. Like, there's a time for everything, and like I know that time's gonna come, but like um right now, like I still have to kind of just be in survival mode, and I kind of just have to make sure that like the things that need to be taken care of can get taken care of. And one day, I'm sure, whether it's days from now or weeks from now or months or maybe even years, I'm probably going to find myself just sitting quietly somewhere, and I'm going to break down, and I'm going to realize like all that grief is finally pouring out of me. Um, yeah.
You are amazing, and you are an amazing mother, and you're doing such an amazing job right now. And I think everything of what you're saying is so true, that you're in survival mode, and there is going to be a time and a place for you to really process. And now's it's like you're still in that mode of I got to do what I have to do to get to the next thing.
Yeah, like I was so scared, and I'm still scared. Like I don't really know. I feel like I'm kind of just having to take it like day by day and week by week right now. Like, there's no permanency. There's no guarantee of anything.
Thank you so much for sharing your story of what you've been through. And I just think you're so brave and you're so strong, and I know you're not always going to feel that way, and that's okay too. It's okay to not be brave and strong too. But I just, God's got you, and he's gonna redeem this
Yeah.
for you. And I do believe that better things are going to come out of this. But I know that, I mean, I can't imagine what it's like. I can only, I mean, it's really hard. It's difficult to even just process or think about it myself. But I just am so grateful that you still have this like amazing spirit, and you have an amazing outlook, and I see it on your face. And I know God's going to take care of you. And And I just, yeah, anything that we can do to help. And we're also going to be doing what we can to help you just from our own, support networks and things like that. And so you're not alone. And I'm so glad that you have your family of faith from church. And I know there's like, that's been a beautiful thing, is seeing how people are coming together and really helping one another. So I'm so glad that Laura Marie, found you and you found her, and just that whole blessing that's coming out of the friendship that you guys have with your families.
There's already been so many blessings coming out of this, like as hard as it is to wrap my mind around losing everything. I had a lifetime of pain and a lifetime of like having to start over and start over and start over. And like, as painful as that is, especially now that like I'm starting over again, God has always like made a way, and I do have a lot to be thankful for, and I do like, yeah, he's blessed us a lot. So while there's like a lot of loss, there's still like a lot of blessing, and I do have a lot of hope. So yeah, a lot of hope.